Hey there. Welcome everybody to our global presentation. We've got some wonderful people here today. I'm joined by Farah Perry. You might remember her as our hostess with the mostest from our previous webinar. I'm joined by Bob Skinner, who leads all things commercial and marketing for the team, and John, who leads the finance and ops side of the equation. So we're going to have Farah kick it off for us, and then we'll get into the presentation. Looking forward to it.
Cool. So good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar. 2025 was a great year for HEVO. We have a lot planned for 2026, which we're excited to talk about with you guys. So I'll quickly introduce the panel here. You all know Jeremy already, but I will quickly remind you, he is our founder and CEO of HEVO. He is a U.S. Army combat veteran who founded HEVO after serving in Iraq. And under his leadership, HEVO has secured partnerships with major automakers, achieved UL and SAE certifications, and raised over 19 million to build the wireless charging infrastructure that we really need with autonomous and EV charging. Also joining us is Bob Remenar, who he is a HEVO board member and an executive across the automotive sector with board positions at Cooper Standard and Monroe and Associates. And he brings decades of industry expertise that are guiding HEVO's path to the market. We also have John Holland, who leads HEVO's finance and operations. He has led successful exits at two EV charging companies, which were both acquired by Schneider Electric, and he is a key voice in the e-mobility sector. And finally, we have Robert Skinner, who leads HEVO's commercial and marketing, and he is a former VP of digital strategy and marketing at Ford Direct, where he partnered digital strategies for thousands of Ford and Lincoln dealers. So with that, let's get started. And Jeremy, back over to you.
Bob, how's it going?
I made it in, so it's going well now.
We know it's a little challenging getting into this thing,
Uh,
but look, happy to have you here with us. And obviously, this is going to be a wonderful discussion with everyone today. I got to say this, we're just so grateful for this year to start off with. I mean, look, 2025 for electric vehicle charging was not prolific in the way that we had seen back in 2020, 2022, but it was meaningful. And there was a lot that happened this year with HEVO. And I got to say up front, you know, we are in a position to really win this industry right now. You'll see the advantages that we have over our other competitors, but more importantly, the advantages that wireless charging brings to the table for everybody, including current BEV drivers, but certainly the future ones as well. So, without further ado, let's get started. And by the way, I will just say we will be calling on our expert panelists throughout this entire presentation. So be prepared, fellas. All right, 2025 highlights. We completed our E11 phase one design and development for one of the major automakers, a legacy automaker out of Europe. That's an 11 kilowatt overnight charging solution. It has 93% efficiency, but also it does bidirectionality. And we will be giving a sneak peek of that, not today, but in a future webinar. So just make sure you join one of the future ones because we will start to showcase some of the new technology and soon rollouts that are going to be happening in 2026. We also secured about 1.75 million in additional investment, and we're continuing to receive investment right now as well. So on average, over the last 3, 4, 5 years, we've typically brought in somewhere around 2 million in investment per year. So we continue to hit that target. And we've also done about 216,000 in revenue for the year, with about another million already in, we'll say, the targeted pipeline for 2026. Of course, it all depends on these programs that we're doing with these major automakers, but they are going in the right direction. And were also fleet programs, especially autonomous vehicle fleet programs, that we are engaged with to try to bring wireless charging forward. Now, that being stated, we launched a pilot program with SteerTech this year for an integrated wireless charging and autonomous vehicle solution. And we showcased that and demonstrated that to major commercial customers and clients and investors in Detroit and in Austin with much fanfare. And by doing so, over this past year, this has all been done by strengthening our team, for which we brought in another 5 seasoned experts in the automotive space and EV charging space, including new board members such as Bob Rebinar, that's here with us. So to cap on this, or recap on this, we in 2025 saw it be a decisive year of execution. We also continued to innovate, and we strengthened our strategic partnerships that have been shaping autonomous wireless charging for the future and some of the things that we've got going on as we move forward. All this with exceptional capital efficiency, to say the least. So here's the current makeup of our leadership team. You've seen some of the people come on to other webinars if you've been joining those other webinars. So that stated, we're just really excited to state that upfront, this team will continue to be with HEVO, at least for the next year and some change. We don't see our team changing over the next 18 months, meaning the current size of the team. And so as we continue to march forward, we will see that the team will remain around the same size of the profile until we get closer to full-on commercialization, which we think is about 18 months or so from now. What that means, we'll talk about in just a moment, but at high level view, it means that we have a production contract with a major automaker and are deploying wireless charging solutions for fleets. So nonetheless, this is what's happening in wireless charging today. So in August, we made our announcement about wireless charging being integrated with an autonomous vehicle with SteerTech. And that was, again, done with much fanfare because as far as we know, it was the first wireless and autonomous vehicle integration. And again, we did demonstrations of that for major customers and investors, both in Detroit and in Austin. And in fact, in Austin, we demonstrated that technology for the DHL, as in, yes, the carrier, DHL. We did that for the CEO and the chief commercial officer with about a 15, 20-minute presentation solo with the CEO and the chief commercial officer in Austin. And so things are starting to progress and mature with that relationship. In September, Porsche comes out and announces that they will have wireless charging on their upcoming Cayenne release, which we believe is in 2026. And so they've been demonstrating and showcasing that and marketing it. And it has had a lot of positive feedback. Most of the major tech enthusiasts, or we would say at least the people who do social media as tech enthusiasts, so these influencers that have tested the product have given glowing remarks about it. So far the report is that it's outstanding. That's really important. And why that's important is because that marks the first major automaker of notoriety to make a firm stance that they will have wireless charging on upcoming models. In the business of automotive, everybody wants to be first to be second. I'll say it again. In the automotive business, everybody wants to be first to be second. So having Porsche be the first with this, and yes, it's an expensive system. It's $8,000+ to get wireless charging, but it's a Porsche. So that's expected. Our products are under $2,000. So FYI, when you decide to go fully electric, or if you do have electric and in the future, you get a vehicle with wireless charging, there's a more likely scenario that it would come from us because of better pricing along with the performance. But nonetheless, we want to make sure that we are promoting the idea that there is wireless charging coming out in as a new product on this vehicle, which we believe is going to be 2026. In November, one of our competitors, a company out of Israel, they're known as Electrion, made a announcement that they have a proposal to acquire one of our other competitors, a company called Induct EV. Induct EV is out of Pennsylvania. So we don't yet know all the details of that. We did, in fact, me and Bob Remenar, we did interview their team to see if there was any interest about HEVO potentially acquiring them. Frankly, it wasn't the right fit. The technology is very expensive. The vehicle side assembly, so the vehicle assembly by itself was $30,000. And then the charging infrastructure is $100,000 for the charging equipment. $130,000 system just doesn't seem very viable. And so with the same level of power of about 50 to 75 kilowatts of what they can do, we said, you know what? We're going to be able to do that for under $5,000. So what's the point of this? So you know what? We want to wish them well because at the end of the day, all the news about wireless charging, period, is good news for HEVO and for your investments as shareholders or potentially your future investments if you're not yet an investor. In December, Next NRG also announced that they were forming a partnership with Florida International University, or FIU, to develop and deploy wireless charging. So what we're seeing is now this turntable of every single month, it looks like there's something big that's being announced in wireless charging. So it is definitely trending right now. And we will state that there's going to be more news to come in January, February, and March. So stay tuned for Q1 news because there are going to be some big announcements coming up in this next year, especially now, again, that Porsche has made that announcement. Everybody else is going to rush to be first to be second. I'm going to take a pause here for a second and ask Bob Remenar, what do you see from your side on the trending news side of this equation?
Well, thanks, Jeremy, and good morning to everyone. First off, Jeremy, thanks for describing me as seasoned instead of old. I really appreciate that. Look, when I joined this board, Jeremy, in July 1st?
That's right.
And I'll be honest, I turned Jeremy down at first. I'm on other boards. I have a full calendar if I want it. And I turned him down and I just said, not right now. I'm not interested. But he continued to come back at me and he came back with a compelling value proposition on HEVO. And I'll dumb this down because I look at a lot of businesses and I will say that HEVO checks every box for a business, the foundation of a successful business. One, wireless charging is more convenient and it's efficient. There's no cords, there's no plugs, there's no human intervention. It will be desired over the plug-in format. The only question is when and how do we get to that transition? The cost of wireless charging model is actually less than or equal to the plug-in model. Okay, by S&P also just came out with a recent study in November, and it said by 2029, over 50% of the projected 95 million vehicle production, that's global vehicle production units, will require external charging. And that grows by about 5 percentage points each year thereafter. So, in a couple of years, more than half the vehicles produced have to be charged. So vehicles equipped with wireless charging are more manufacturing efficient. There's no flaps, there's no plugs, there's no extended copper wiring. That will be desirable to OEMs. Aftermarket or dealer installed accessory solutions can be accomplished with a modest port add to the central wiring harness. So, we're hoping that once the OEMs figure this out, they'll make it easy to plug in the HEVO model, and so you don't have to have it as a production offering. It can be done in the aftermarket or as a dealer installed accessory. While continuous improvement is part of today's HEVO, our culture, HEVO system is already validated and it's certified. We don't need to invent anything to get our product to market. It's already invented. We're ready now. HEVO is the low-cost solution provider, as Jeremy just sort of pointed out. Others have systems, but they're much, much more expensive. Okay, and our system provides better functionality at a lower cost. HEVO will use a build-to-print manufacturing model. So in other words, we're going to be very CapEx light. No bricks and mortar. We're not going to spend our capital on building factories. Okay, we're going to have somebody else produce this for us under a build-to-print model. Our structural cost is very light. Pretty much you saw our team in the pictures that Jeremy just showed. And I will also add that no cash stipends are being paid to our board members or advisors. We're all incented by equity, which fully aligns us with you, the investors. So finally, HEVO software is fully developed. It's functioning. It's state of the art. It supports optimized charging conditions and supports bidirectional capabilities. And as Jeremy said, Porsche will offer wireless charging in the Cayenne mid 2026. Okay, all the pundits have already gotten excited about it, but once the world experiences the convenience of wireless charging, then in my opinion, it's Katie bar the door. So we are well positioned, okay, with great functionality, a low cost solution, and we just need the world, okay, to come together, okay, and discover this technology. So Jeremy, I'll stop there.
I think we're done with this webinar. Bob might drop this thing better than anybody could. So, Bob, I don't have anything else to wrap on that other than say that was amazing, and it's true. It hits to the main points of what is driving this business and what you're involved with as an investor and as a shareholder. I would also like to bring in Bob Skinner into this conversation for a minute. Thank you very much for those points, Bob. Webinar. We're going to come back to you, I'm sure, on those. I'm guaranteeing that there are people that are listening to this right now that are saying, I've got a couple of questions, but also that it's that resolvent that we have a direction here with a clear path to getting to a real production series system with major automakers that are lining up because, again, everybody's going to line up. Now that Porsche has done this, they've already been coming in that direction, but now it's time. So, Bob Skinner, why don't you tell us what you've been seeing in Detroit, especially with the Stellantis hiring, where we thought things were going to go negative for a minute, but have resurfaced?
Yeah, there's a resurgence with Stellantis in Michigan, which is amazing. They've had a very large corporate headquarters here in Auburn Hills, Michigan, for years. And over the past 4 or 5, there's been a lot of changes and a lot of people laid off at that facility. So I think all the pundits thought that eventually it was going to get closed down. But in the last couple of months, it's totally reverse course. They're hiring 2,000 white collar workers for that facility. Traffic has picked up, and it looks like the energy is back. And they've just made some recent announcements around the AV robo-taxi market as well. We have additional discussions going on with their innovation team about projects in 26. And you're also seeing General Motors get back into the game of AV as well. So I think this energy around what Waymo's obviously started, but we're seeing Uber and Tesla and Zoox and others coming to the market. One of the big cost factors for them in this market or inefficiencies is the one thing they have to do is to plug in to charge those vehicles. So lots of energy around the automotives, the traditional OEMs and others coming around, and we're seeing lots of activity in Detroit, in particular with Stellantis right now. So excited.
It's uplifting to see Stellantis stepping back into this and taking a serious run at bringing all those people back to the Chrysler headquarters that were working from home, but also hiring 2,000 people, white collar workers, is a big deal. That means that's going to be a lot of engineers and a lot of people on the operational side. And that kind of staff are going to be looking for unique projects to follow up on, trying to make their products more competitive. And so, since that, we've been already working with them for quite some time, as everybody already knows. But in the background of that is that this is opening the door to other possibilities. And so, we can't really comment too deeply on what that is because we're under embargo. But the news is out there that we have been developing something with them for a few years here on the typical, we'll say, runway of time that it takes for a product to go from early development to maturity to production series systems that are on vehicles. That usually takes about 4 to 5 years. Okay. So if we're in about the 2 year mark of that programming with some of these major automakers as we have been, that tells you we're about halfway there. And so that points to the azimuth that we are going to see production series systems coming onto vehicles sometime in the 2028 timeframe, maybe 2029. Now, before I move on to some of these other points, and there's a lot to still discuss here, I do want to give a moment to John to just quickly talk about what are you seeing on the autonomous vehicle side and what you've already seen from the HEVO product offering that we had with Steer. Where do you think that trend could take us to? Do you see anything from the commercialization and offerings? And what does that do to improve the autonomous features in terms of total operational cost?
Thanks, Jeremy. A little tough following Bob and Bob. They did such a great job. But on the autonomous vehicle, if you don't follow me, please do on LinkedIn. I'm quite active in that on that platform. And following the autonomous vehicles, I'm seeing it now on a daily basis, multiple posts from other. And as Jeremy said, I won't call them influencers, but they're tech people that do have influence by followers on the platform. And they break it down from a technology standpoint, convenience. We're seeing on multiple daily basis autonomous vehicles. And a big thing that we hadn't touched on here, I'll talk about one thing is the lack of cables and theft. I'm now actually starting to see that over across the pond over in Europe, where it was a big thing in the US. We have a big problem here with cutting cables, but now they're starting to feel the pain over across the pond. And everybody's posting about how do we solve this? How do we solve this? And there's cables and there's exploding things and electrifying people. I mean, there's just all kind of workarounds. And all I just say is there's one word, it's wireless. Like it eliminates that whole problem. And then as an investor of either money or time, in my case, both, into a company, I have to look to skate where the puck is going. And if you believe, and you firmly believe that autonomous vehicles are not pie in the sky, and then we are going to autonomous vehicles, which my Tesla right now is in, I'm getting full driving, test driving it. So if you believe that, then nobody has presented to me business plans for investment for a charge point operator to have man staff to charge plug autonomous vehicles. So that tells me you have to believe and know that you're going to have wireless charging with an autonomous vehicle because you cannot, the ROI does not work when you're going to have people either moving the vehicles around and or plugging them in to charge them and schedule. So you look at, again, 3 to 5 years out where the industry is going, a large percentage has to move to wireless. And HEVO is, as Bob iterated, on multiple points why HEVO is the company to provide that.
Great segue, because let's talk about where it is and things have been recently. So there was a lot of chatter about after the expiration of all the incentives that the global EV market was going to see a downward shift. Wrong. Absolutely wrong. What we have seen, in fact, is most major automakers, excluding Tesla out of this, by the way, most automakers have seen a massive increase year on year, or year on year gains, I should say. So Volkswagen, 140%, GM, 100%, Hyundai, 45%. If we look at their 2021 original market numbers, we see things like Volkswagen's up 275%, GM's up 1,000%, Hyundai's up 50%. Almost everybody saw a trend going up from this year, with the very few of them being Mercedes and a couple others that really just stayed stagnant. And it had to do with something very important, which is that it's about model availability. So if we look at General Motors, which is the bottom left graph here, just a few years ago, they were somewhere around 3 or 4 models that they had in offerings that were battery electric vehicles. And now they're at 12. So the catalyst definitively has been more models available. Right now in the world today, you can select from over 100 battery electric vehicles today, not to mention the plug-in hybrids. So if you add the plug-in hybrids into that mix, then all of a sudden we're well over 120, 130 different vehicle models. And we're going to see a trend for plug-in hybrid electric vehicles come back. And there are locations where that makes a lot of sense. Geographies like Australia, they've been making a lot of announcements about going back to plug-in hybrid electric vehicles. Why? Because there's a lot of distance between the major cities. And so they have the infrastructure, just like we have here in the United States, the same kind of similar challenge. We have a lot of land between major cities, and there's already existing infrastructure for obviously the petrol side. So when you're doing anything from the point of view of, long range travel, at least in this intermediary point of time, maybe it does make sense to have plug-in hybrids for certain people. But there's a lot of people that are using battery electric vehicles today and doing that easily and doing trips coast to coast. So it obviously comes down to your personal requirements, but the charging challenges are still very real. And so we have to meet these challenges. The other thing here is that these segments have really expanded. So not only is it just the cars anymore, it's pickups, it's SUVs, everything in between, not to mention all the other Class 2 to Class 8 vehicles that have started to transition to battery electric vehicles as well. So all this transition is happening at real time, real speed, with all the tariff challenges and everything that has gone on over 2025. But demand has stayed strong despite all these incentive shifts with the expiration of those incentives. And the big takeaway here is that, look, if 2025 wasn't the nail in the coffin of the battery electric vehicle movement, frankly, there's no stopping it. So here's the S&P data that Bob Remenar was referencing earlier. And what we see is that by breakdown of total electric, whether it's EV or hybrid or some kind of mild hybrid or ICE vehicles, there's a downward trend on ICE vehicles. That's the most important point here. It's the opposite of what market will say sentiment has been, at least for the last year, because of all the changes in the direction of administrations. That hasn't changed anything in the reality. So what we do see here is that there's a downward trend in ICE vehicle ownership and purchases, and an upward trend in hybrid and electric vehicles. Bottom line is there's a lot of charging that still needs to be put out into the market to cover this basis. And as wireless is now finally coming into market, we're in a really strong competitive moat right now to talk about where we are going to take this company. Let me introduce to you HEVO's future vision. All right, so we've got to continue doing pilot programs. We're going to have to continue to do technology development. That's just going to be part of the game plan for the next year to 2 years. It's a program, it's a process, but that's how you win the business with these major automakers and everybody that needs to buy in and make decisions at the key decision level authority to do so. So what we do know is this: we will be doing pilots with autonomous companies over the next 12 to 24 months. We're not ready to announce who they are yet, but those conversations are happening weekly, even daily in the background. And it's not just here in the US. Let me tell you right now, there are a lot of autonomous vehicle companies who have been quietly building, developing, and innovating globally that are coming online and deploying their vehicles all over the world, and they're plugging them in. So they're not getting the total cost of ownership reductions that they could have without the wireless being a part of that program. So we need to continue to innovate and be a part of those innovation programs to develop that technology with those autonomous vehicle companies, because there are major fleets that are deploying those AVs, those autonomous vehicles today, and they are seeking wireless charging. Now, what's great is that when these kinds of autonomous vehicle fleet programs kick off, the fleets have a strong voice to create pull with these autonomous vehicle developers and manufacturers to basically push them to put wireless charging on. And so much, we know that at least a couple of companies have been told by governments of other countries that they must have wireless charging on the autonomous vehicles to continue to deploy. And that's where we've been able to step into that equation. Now, with these automakers, there's also the continued work that we're gonna follow through on related to their battery electric vehicles that we've been designing equipment for already. And so their next generation electric vehicle platforms will have wireless charging on them. At least it'll have the hookups on them. Today, there are already at least 2, if not 3 models that we know of that already have wireless charging hookups on them. And that's the Tesla Cybertruck. We know that it has wireless charging hookups on it. The Audi e-tron supposedly had wireless charging hookups on it. And of course, the Porsche Cayenne, as we've already announced, that will have wireless charging, will have the hookups on it. So that stage of extra connection options, in theory, opens the door for HEVO to make its offering available to those vehicles as well, in theory. There's still going to have to be some kind of interface and communications and things that have to happen in order to make that work. That doesn't mean that we're going to go chasing after those kinds of programs. But what I'm trying to employ here is that we are on a path where wireless charging is steadily becoming a trending technology. People, major automakers, are already starting to buy into that program, even offering ready available hookups and connections onto the vehicles. And we think that's going to continue to be the trend. And soon there will just be vehicles that have plug-in and wireless charging on them. And then there'll be autonomous vehicles that only have wireless charging on them. And that's the way that we see this path growing. So along that path, we have to continue to evolve our charging offerings as well, which means that we have to be able to bring in not only our 11 kilowatt systems, but much higher power, faster charging solutions as well. So we are on a pathway to bringing out a 25 kilowatt system, 50 kilowatt system, 100 kilowatt system, and a 300 kilowatt system. We have already designed the primary architecture for all those different levels, and have even tested that equipment for short durations with our partner Oak Ridge National Labs down in Knoxville, Tennessee. But nonetheless, there's a path from, we'll say, R&D to commercialization and commercial product that still needs to happen to mature that technology. Then there's always the standards and the infrastructure readiness that we're always having to keep in mind and always having to test and certify and validate for. So the 2025, what is still remaining of it, and 2026 milestones are really about autonomous fleet pilots and validation. So as stated, we'll continue to work towards launching pilot programs with these autonomous fleets through 2026, along with validating our technology for SAE J2954. That's the international standard for wireless charging. There are tests that are going to be coming up for us to do our 22 plus kilowatt system for validation, for automotive validation, very specifically in Austin, Texas in 2026. So expect to hear some news about that. And then we're going to continue to scale our technology, not only going to 22 kilowatts, but we're going to push to go to higher power as well. Now, as we move into 27, it's about scaling for these autonomous pilots. So getting out of the onesie twosies and getting into the early dozens is basically what we're going to try to achieve. So scaling that includes scaling production. We don't need to go nuts. We can start, as you've already heard from Bob Reminar, our production is going to be mostly done from contract manufacturers and approved suppliers, along with a final assembly line and end of line testing and packaging and shipping. So at the moment, we have been looking at major third parties that can support that. And we're going to continue that process. But for now, we don't have to just run into that. That would be a mistake. And again, we're a capital efficient company. So we're always looking at timelines to the real scenarios before we just leap into something. The operational efficiency and sustainability of the system is that this is built for those logistics. And as we start to prepare for those next generation vehicles for the 27, 28 launch with these automakers integrating into the production series platforms, that's where those OEM partnerships, those automaker partnerships start to come alive. So expect that we'll continue to push the timeline that 2028, 2029 will be the year segment when we will see wireless charging come on to these production series vehicles. And we'll continue to advance our wireless charging with these autonomous vehicle platforms and enhance our charging options to the 100 kilowatt plus profile, leading to that 2028 to 2030 timeline, which is we launch fully out there with our product on automaker vehicles, production series vehicles, in the tens of thousands, if not the hundreds of thousands, is what we believe is capable from these programs in terms of what their targets are that they have been telling us. And we continue to move up that chain to 300 kilowatt systems and develop ourselves into that global leadership for the adoption of this technology. Before I move on, I will, and we're going to take Q&A here in just a minute. I do want to just make sure that everybody knows this. There is an existing round. It's a Series A2. It's a priced round. It's 60 million pre with a target of 5 million. We've currently had about $1 million or so of funds that have been committed to that round. We're so grateful and thankful for that. So we still have about 4 million left. Currently, we do have an incentive plan that we've rolled out. We typically see these kinds of things roll out, especially towards the end of the year, start of the year, when everybody's going into the holiday season. And so we do have it in a tiered out kind of first, second, third, and final tier. So the first, we're trying to raise the next 1 million with these incentives. They do expire January 31. So you do have to make a decision to execute and fund before January 31, but also at the same time, depending on when you come in, you'll get a different tranche. So right now, the first 250K is going to get a 20% penny warrant. What does that mean? Well, first thing, you have to do at least a $10,000 investment. Then you will get the warrants once we've closed all of the 5 million that we're trying to raise. By the way, that puts us at approximately a $2 per share price. So we're at 1.9991. So approximately $2 per share. But nonetheless, say you invest 10,000. Well, then that means you would get approximately 5,000 shares with that investment. And then we would give you an additional warrant pool of 1,000 additional warrants in this case, because that's, at the top line for that 250K, 20% warrant would give you approximately another 1,000 warrants to exercise as a penny warrant, as it's stated in its name, at a penny over a 10-year period. And so it's a wonderful incentive. And we would just say, take advantage of it, because we've already gotten somewhere around 500 to 700,000 in interest for it. So please step up and help us lock up that next 1 million as we roll into this next year, because it's going to be a busy year. And we need to make sure that we have the capital runway to ensure we can meet these requirements for these major automakers and to roll out this program with these fleets. All right, now we're going to take a pause here from presentation, and we're going to start looking at some of the questions. If you have questions, please come into the Q&A, drop them in there. We will go through these ones step by step. So Have you evaluated NOA in Australia, and what is your view of them? I don't know anything about NOA, to be honest, in Australia. So if anybody else wants to step in on that question, feel free. While maybe they're thinking about that, I'll let the other panelists do some research real quick and figure out what's going on there. For the bidirectional function, what is feedback to the grid speed? Well, look, the vehicle is really if you will, the backup battery or the power wall, and that's a solution, right? So think of it as your backup generator. We're not putting power back in necessarily to the grid, and at least not at first, because there's a lot of challenges to doing that. There's a lot of regulatory matter that you got to go through to get that approved. So I'll just say this up front. The bidirectional nature of the technology is to go back into the home. So that is something that we can do. That's pretty well developed now. But here's the thing. I get to tell you this. We have the best price bidirectional product in the market by a lot. So our product for our 11 kilowatt system, our solution for the vehicle assembly for 11 kilowatt bidirectional solution has been developed to be sold to the automakers. And I just want to repeat that, sold to the automakers for a price approximately around $250 to $300, okay, per system. By the way, obviously that is at production scale. So the opposite end of that, which is the grid solution that you would put into your home for an 11 kilowatt bidirectional solution, which could charge your vehicle, frankly, in about an hour or so for your daily usage, average usage of about 30 to 35 miles per day. That's what Americans typically drive per day, and it's about the same for Europeans as well. So about 1 hour of charging is what it takes to power up your car for your daily usage. And with it being bidirectional, all of a sudden you have a massive battery pack that's on your vehicle that can now power your grid at your home only whenever power fails. And that product is going to be priced around $1,200 to $1,300 retail. There's nobody in the game of plug-in charging bidirectionality that's even close to that price. Usually what we see is pricing being between $5,000 to $10,000 for a level 2 bidirectional charger for plug-in charging. So let me see here. Any current revenue being generated or will be later generation only after product completely in market. As stated earlier, we did a little bit over 200,000 in revenue this year. We expect to be able to do at least equally the same next year, but there is a target of going to about 1 million. We do have a pipeline and a pathway to getting to 1 million in revenue for next year, but it all comes down to how these automakers want to perform and develop their programs along with these pilot programs and who's going to pay for those. So there's always some of that. All right. We have a question. What is the company's funding plan for the next 18 and 24 months? Will the company move away from crowdfunding and try to secure institutional capital? The answer is we're always seeking out institutional capital. JP Morgan still continues to be our investment banker, our IB that represents HEVO for fundraising, especially with these potential VCs and institutionals. That stated, we've been in contact with them recently. We do have regular calls and communications with them. It looks like the market is going to finally become a little bit unfrozen finally over the 2026-2027 timeframe for EV charging related investments, because it did go cold for the last 3 to 4 years, especially over the last 2 years, considering all the other challenges that were happening in the EV charging markets. So that's the early consensus. I don't have any more details to provide other than we will always continue to try to bring in institutional investment. We have had institutional investors, we would call them micro VCs, even participate in our current Series A2 round. But for sure, crowdfunding will continue to be our pathway forward. We first thing, we love crowdfunding. We love retail investors. They love us. We've got over 5,000 of them that have invested into the company so far. We do see other companies in the space, we'll say, of clean tech and sustainable tech that have done incredibly well on other platforms, raising 50 to 75 to 100 million through other crowdfunding performs like a Reg A Plus, which is what we're considering for 2026, but not right out of the gate to come soon. Okay, so then we have let's see. What is the dilutive effect to early investors with these additional rounds of fundraising? There's always dilution. I mean, that's part of the game of being an investor, right? So I will tell you that the important part of that is, rather than looking at the dilutive effect, what did you buy in at? What was the price that you bought in at? What is your total share count? And what's the company's potential next valuations? Those are the things that need to be considered rather than just wholly taking a look at it from a dilutive part. We do encourage you to continue to invest into the company if you want to ensure that you're not being diluted down. Will you be looking for dealers or sales reps in Europe? And when will sales drive start? I'm guessing that's just asking when will we start European sales. We're already in Europe. I mean, we're working with two major automakers out of Europe. So as soon as they're ready to release vehicles with wireless charging on them, you can get our products with wireless charging. But also, there is a need for there to be pilot programs that launch as well. So we do see a few opportunities for that in Europe, but what we're actually seeing pilot programs happening more at the moment is in the Middle East, in Asia, and also in Americas. So far, because of especially the autonomous vehicle regulatory requirements in Europe, there's a little bit of probably a distance of time before we'd be able to say that we could start doing something like that directly in Europe. But also, things change quickly. So we'll keep you guys updated on that part. Let's see. I don't really see any other questions at the moment here. So look, the bottom line is that the company is in a great position to take on 2026 and run with it because of all the work that we've done over the last several years to put ourselves in a position to do so. We do have these major pilot programs that we are working to win right now. Again, a lot of those are going to be with autonomous vehicle companies that are doing early deployments. And so being able to satisfy their plugging charging needs with wireless charging instead and lowering their total cost of ownership as a result. And then the other part of that is our continued work with our major automaker programs and our customers and partnerships on that side, along with further development of taking our technology into higher power levels as we start to get closer to these products becoming offered as production series systems. So with that stated, I think we're about ready to close this year off. It's been a wonderful year. It's been a strong year. I can say that we are very festive, as you can see by my antlers, because there's just been a lot to celebrate this year. And I want to put this out there now that we do believe that 2026 is going to be a market year of exceptional progress and growth, but also the maturity of this very much evolving market as the trends have shown us that we will see wireless charging on cars finally. And that's exciting. And you're a part of something that has really the fruit. We're going to see the fruits of all this labor come to head finally. So thank you all for a wonderful 2025 as we start to roll on to 2026. And now back to Farah to take us home.
Yeah, so thank you to our panelists. Thank you to Jeremy as well. And thank you to all of you for joining us this morning. We're going to have the recording up probably the next day or so, and you will get emails about that as well. But thank you for joining, and we'll see you all in 2026.
Happy holidays, everybody. See you in 26. Thank you.